Okay.
Okay, so my name is, I'll just wait until you start.
Sorry, I just realised my phone was like stuck
No,
out there.
every time I went in to move this, I thought, have I just started blocking you?
No, we're good. All right, so intros.
Intro.
Who are we? What do we do?
So my name is Agne. My name is Agne and I'm a wedding videographer.
Yeah.
I film weddings, that is my job.
I love that. What's your website?
agneharrisfilms.co.uk. I just recently changed it. Okay, introduce yourself please, miss.
So I am Amy-Rose of Amy-Rose Photography. My website is amy-rose.co.uk, and yeah, we wanted to put together like a little bit of an online workshop type thing, talk about our experience of like pearls of wisdom that we have gained from shooting and in that time at weddings, kind of pitfalls, little tips to make your life easier, how you kind of get into shooting, what it's like being self-employed.
Just navigating the whole thing.
Yeah.
And how to do it without completely going off the rails.
Yeah, losing your mind. All right, well, should we jump in with the questions then?
Yeah.
Because we've had a few, haven't we, from our little shout out that we did on Instagram, and
people have things they want to know.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, I think because we've both been doing this for me like 8 years or so, you
8-ish, yeah.
Yeah.
Similar. It's hard to tell because you don't, like, when do you start counting? When you first picked up a camera, when you start getting money in from what you're doing?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's a good question in itself.
It's hard to
when are you legit? Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that we kind of just do naturally, we actually kind of thought it might be good to really talk through like our thought processes with things, because we don't think about this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
It just happens. So
yeah, and you only realize when you've actually spoken to someone else who does a similar job to you or who wants to get into it.
Yeah.
That there's all these other little nuances that you just naturally end up doing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting to get it out.
Let's break it down.
Let's break it down. We've got some questions.
Okay. So first one, how did we meet?
How did we meet?
It wasn't on Tinder.
Unfortunately. No, it was a wedding. I think it was it Haley's?
Yes.
Yeah, because I've done a few weddings at Blackwell Grange. And I remember it really well actually, because I'm always really, really looking forward to the bit where we sit down and eat. Not that the rest of the day isn't so fun, but like there comes a point where you're like, okay, I'm so just hungry. And they brought us our food and you were like, oh no, I'm all right. I've got my Tupperware of whatever it was that you brought because you're training for a competition. And I got to eat your food and I was like, this girl's amazing. I always want to work with her and eat her meals.
And funnily enough, you say that is my resounding memory from that wedding as well.
Just being really hungry.
Being really hungry, not being able to eat a beef Wellington because I thought it just looked so good. But it was a beautiful wedding, and I remember also distinctly us kind of heading out into the cornfields. And what I really liked about working with yourself as well as a videographer is you weren't afraid to like state what you needed and what you wanted to get from especially the couples portraits part of the day, because I think often as photographers like we just take over, right?
Well, the thing is, it's very easy to fall back into that state of like, you guys organize them, I'll just be in the background and film, which for the rest of the day I feel like videographers do anyway, because I would say there's 2 parts of the day where it's like vital for us to capture from beginning to end, which is the ceremony and the speeches, because we tend to need those in full. But the rest of the day, like, we don't really need the group shots. The portraits, obviously, we do need, but a lot of the times, videographers can get a bit, what's the word? Like, complacent? Passive? Yeah, passive. And just let you guys
I didn't want to say that,
do what you're doing. We're so passive.
It's because we're control freaks.
I know, but can you see how long it took us to get this shot? I mean, it's always like this in here. No, but it's true, and I think when I first started out, we are cool to just go off now, right? Talk about stuff.
Let's do it.
When I first started out, I actually did wedding photography as a second shooter, and then started shooting weddings as a photographer. And I used to really dread the couples shoot and the group shots, because they were so, like, everyone looks straight at you and asks you, like, what do we do now? Like, that must be so stressful for you. And then when I went into doing videography, I was like, oh, I don't have to worry about it anymore. Yeah, you guys could do the stuff. But then the longer you work in this job, you realize that actually there are things that you need from the couples shoot. And if you can find another photographer that works well with you, being sometimes shouting out instructions and you doing the same, and us not getting in each other's way, that's like the dream team. And that's why we really enjoy working together, because also, like, because there's a lot of pressure on you to get those shots right, it probably helps to have someone else also say, how about you guys try this, and you can, like,
oh yeah, I mean, like, from my perspective, as long as you've got kind of the same creative vision, I guess, like, that's ideal. If occasionally I don't have to totally direct and essentially just manage the couple that are in front of you. And you're right, it is very intense, and they're looking at you because they feel vulnerable, stuck in front of, you know, when there's a videographer there, you might also have a second shooter, so there might be 3 lenses on them, but you're, as a photographer, I feel you're responsible for their level of energy and making them feel good. So even if you can just break from that intensity, because you're out maybe shooting for like 20 minutes or so and you're trying to keep them buoyant, if you can break from that for like 20-30 seconds, that is a really good breather for you as a photographer to just kind of check yourself, making sure that you're getting what you need. I mean, we kind of, I don't know about you, but on the couples portraits, so when we say couples portraits, like, there's basically a part of the day where it's like you take the couple off and it's kind of those romantic, candid, like, just kind of frolicking through a field type shots.
They have to frolic. They can't just
And there's like a real art to making those look natural, which is what everyone wants.
No one wants to look staged.
No. So that's like the couples portraits. This is the bit of the day that we're discussing. Like, generally we'll kind of try and whip them out like before they sit down for some food, so they haven't got too much booze in them, but maybe a little booze in them.
No stains on the dress yet.
No stains, just kind of, they're not in full party swing yet. And I still feel like at that point there's, almost a bit of anxiety, or there's adrenaline going. I mean, sometimes you'll get some couples who just, like, they go for it, and you don't even have to direct or suggest anything. They know how, it's almost like they can see themselves, they know how they want to come across, even though they're not models. But then I find that I'm able to kind of take that step back, and I enjoy that quite a bit, because most of the time, actually, that's the real graft, where you're like, you're really trying to tread that line between trying to get, you know, your framing perfect, the lighting perfect, the environment, make them feel good.
Make sure the dress looks good, like, make sure everything is perfect when it is just you. And not only that, but you're doing all of this while acting like you're just out for a cup of tea. Like, do you find you're always like,
and you're so
hey
chill
guys,
about it all,
look at that, and you're like fapping with your camera, like, really not
there's
anymore,
a duality of like who you are as a person at that moment. So like, it's like the feet are flapping below the surface, but you have to appear like, you know, like everything is calm and under control. But so that's how we met, right? I think we've got another question. Here we go. This is a good one. And this is for, so this question came to me, and it was from someone who's really kind of looking to start out in photography. But the same applies to videography. Like, how do you get work without a portfolio? It's like a chicken egg, catch-22 type situation. Even to get kind of second shooting jobs, established photographers want to know that you know how to hold a camera, you know how to expose, you know how to do all those kinds of things. So how do you build that body of work? Where does that work come from?
So how did you get started? I'll ask you that first.
Okay, right. So for me, I used to shoot a lot of street photography, so I'd just get out and about in towns and cities with my camera. And really I was just kind of looking for the moment, whatever presented itself to me. And that was graft doing that, because like you might be out for half a day and you'll get like 5 decent shots.
And when was this? Like 8-ish years ago?
Well, I also did a fine art degree as well, which had some photography elements in it, but I was doing more kind of installation type work then, so it had some audio, had some sculpture and painting and all sorts in. So, and there wasn't like a photography course that I did specifically. I just picked up a camera and started shooting.
I think that's how a lot of the people that get into this industry have started. Just pick up a camera.
Just more time behind the lens, I think. But yeah, so, and I graduated from that in 2008, and so how many years? It's like 14 years ago. And then I'd also kind of had a whole other career in like health and social care. So because I really loved working with people. And then I just kind of found that I wasn't being creative enough in my day-to-day job, so hence kind of bringing the photography back in. Doing more street photography, and then one of my jobs in health and social care was working with schools for kids with autism. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if I was able to offer some kind of flexible photography service where there wasn't too much pressure to pose or do this, that or the other, weren't bright lights or anything that was overly stimulating. So I thought, well, maybe I could be that person that could offer this like really bespoke service. So that was how I initially started doing photography.
So
cool. That kind of led to working with a lot of charities. So I guess sort of early days, perhaps a lot of the work that I was doing wasn't paid, but it was for a charity. So that's how it kind of sat okay with me. I felt like this was how I could give, in a way, like my skill set or whatever, and it was going to get put to a good use, but then I was also building up a portfolio. It wasn't wedding specific at that point, but then there was an opportunity for me to shoot alongside another photographer. I mean, this must have been 12 years ago, I'd say, at a wedding.
and how did that come up, that opportunity?
So that was my best mate's dad was a wedding photographer. Yeah, his name's Willow, he's such a legend. Everyone in the village loves Willow. So it was really fun, and that was kind of like my first experience, like pretty much at a wedding. I've been a bridesmaid for like 3 times as a kid, and then they stopped asking me like after I turned 8.
Enough with the throwing of the petals now.
Yeah, she's done now. Her time's over. Past her prime.
I just want to get back to the weddings.
So yeah, that was a friend's father who kind of let me go along and just shoot with them. Really, it wasn't, I wasn't getting paid or anything like that. It was just to kind of get a bit of experience.
Did you want to go into weddings eventually, or was it
at that point I didn't. To be honest, I didn't believe that I could ever really make it as a wedding photographer. I just thought, like, what an incredible dream to do that. Why do I get to do that? Like, what's special about me that I get to have that kind of lifestyle and that kind of job? But then some friends a bit later, so I'd started building my portfolio. So all these events, they started getting a bit bigger and a bit higher scale. Like, people eventually catch on to the work you're doing. And then you start getting paid for your events that you're shooting. And those events might be kind of like corporate things, or like even little fairs, your birthdays, that kind of thing, christenings. And then all of a sudden you're in a church, which is kind of like the wedding sort of set.
You're getting there. You can throw those petals again soon.
Oh, it's going to happen at some point. And then I started doing some shoots with couples as well. Like, again, this is all unpaid for work. Like, I don't know.
It finds you, I think, like you put yourself out there as a photographer.
Yeah.
People then start knowing you as, the photographer. Get Amy-Rose to do this, and
it's when they start asking you, I think, that's when you get more comfortable with saying, actually, this is going to cost this is going to cost this.
Yeah, when you're not saying, please, can I take some pictures?
Because back in the day, like, I don't think I could have paid some people to let me shoot them. Yeah. but then the tables slowly start turning, but that takes a couple of years. And I feel like, I don't know, I don't want to sound like a martyr or anything like that, but I definitely ate dirt for a couple of years just to kind of get something together, build a website, start setting up Instagram, that kind of thing.
I think we live in a bit of a instant gratification type of world at the minute with Instagram, and everyone's got a camera, everyone's got social media where you put something up, you immediately get feedback, response. Like, I think that hearing, you know, that it might take a couple of years to build something up before you can get somewhere is very realistic, you know, to hear that, and it might not be something that people want to hear, but I think your portfolio has to take time to be born, like, naturally, because it's not only about, you know, the photos that you can show people, it's about the people that you've met, just getting your name out there. A lot of the times it is like your friends and their families that then say, you know, oh, someone in their office is getting married, maybe I know Amy-Rose does photography, even if it's just street photography at that time, but, you know. But yeah, I think it's
that immediate kind of circle that are around you, that, and then the more you start talking about it, and I found that I had a real like switch where I suddenly decided I was a photographer, and that was my primary existence in life. But I certainly like, you know, I still worked full time for the first couple of years, I'd say. And when I say full time, so my last job before I went full time as wedding photographer, I was working in a teenage care home. It was like a kind of bail and remand home, so a lot of the kids were on tag, so it was such an interesting juxtaposition between like being in this care home and you've got kids kind of throwing TVs out the windows and having to restrain them and do all this kind of physical work.
Did you actually have to restrain?
Yeah, it was
really?
my job. Yeah.
No way.
Let me show you.
Yeah. No, actually, not with what you do now as well. It sort of all makes sense.
That's so true. What I do now, right? As in like my powerlifting.
Yeah. No, what you do at weddings that people don't know about.
I don't wrestle couples every day of my life. So those shifts were sort of like 14 hours or so, maybe even longer. So if you ended up doing a sleep, so it meant that you could get like a fair wedge of work in a couple of days, and so then you'd have like 3 or 4 days for the rest of the time to help build your business. And I certainly don't think I felt any shame in still working whilst I was also calling myself a photographer. Like, to me, that would have felt like a real luxury, because you've still got bills to pay, you've still got rent and all this kind of stuff, to just go, right, that's what I'm gonna do. Where's the work? It better come to me. And it took for my cousin Kerry and a trip over to see her in Dublin in Ireland when she lived there. Shout out to Kerry, she's incredible, by the way. She's business coach. And she was like, you know, you've got to do this. Like, this is just something that you're so passionate about. Like,
dive into it.
Go for it, yeah. And she was, at the time, she was very much right. There's not really a plan B, just go for it. And that's when I eventually took that leap and just kind of trusted that it would work out. But I didn't have huge savings or anything like that. I was just, had to live pretty meagerly for the next year or so after that, until I'd sort of booked a full season. And that was a really long answer. Sorry about that.
Well, because it's not a quick journey, is it?
That's a very good point.
It takes time to answer as well.
So, and yourself, what?
Well, mine's probably kind of similar, but I think I hadn't yet started into the, like you said, you were working at the time. I hadn't even, because I studied media arts at university, which is such a wishy-washy name. And it was. I was like, what am I really getting into? It was film studies, so we were making films. But I was in like the directing screen fiction course, so we were writing scripts, we were directing actors, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't like there was a documentary course, which I probably should have, maybe now in hindsight, it would have benefited me, because what we do essentially, what videographers do is you do documentaries of people's wedding days. I had never even heard of wedding videographers. I mean, you know that they exist. You know that, weddings happen, but it just wasn't in my field of vision. So I graduated and I was like, what do I do with this random degree now? Like, do you need me to film something for you, please? Yeah. Like, it was just so like, because I was planning to go back to Lithuania after university. So in the last year where everyone was like getting internships, I was like, don't worry about it. I'm just going back to Lithuania. But then life happened, things changed, and I eventually ended up staying. Eva wants to be involved.
Sorry, Eva the dog's come to say hello.
Eva, hello, do you want to hear my answer? Yeah. So I finished my degree, decided to stay, and was like, who wants me to be on a set with them? Like, applied for loads of runner jobs. Just got nowhere really. But then as a graduation present, my mom and dad bought me a camera. It was the Canon 60D.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm not on Canons anymore.
That's actually not a bad starter camera. I had a 550D before. Oh yeah, 550D before this. I had a 70D. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you kind of skipped to middle range.
Well, I don't remember if I think I researched into it, or maybe I found this out later as an accident. But it was like the first like professional camera, like the very lowest of the professional cameras, whatever that means, of the Canons at the time. So I got this camera, and while I was looking for work, I was on job seekers allowance. I mean, no shame in that either. Eva, you okay?
Eva's gonna lie down in a second. There we go.
Anyway, so yeah, kind of like you, I was just out photographing things. I was still like looking for video work, but because I had my camera, I was photographing stuff, but I think more as a hobby, because I just really enjoyed doing it. And while I was like trying to get work on the side, my friends and I would go and do photo shoots. Like, I would get her dressed up in all these weird clothes, and we'd go into the forest and take these like dramatic photos. Like, now looking back, it was so like, I didn't. Instagram wasn't
a documentary, but you needed to photograph something.
It was just something, but it wasn't to build a portfolio. It was just, we were just having fun, and I really enjoyed doing it. And there was no Instagram back then, but it was Facebook, and I think I did put these like albums up on Facebook of these interesting photo shoots that we did. And then again, just like we were saying with you, people started knowing me as the girl with the camera who can take pictures, and
it's pretty much how they know us now, right?
Yeah, exactly. People still think I'm the photographer when really it's video. I know it's the same looking cameras, but god damn it films. And so my friend who I lived with was still in uni, and she was in a swing dancing society, and the society then asked me to do a few films for them, like swing dancing shows and competitions and stuff. So I did that. Oh, cool. And they're like, if you did that, you can come and join our society for free for the year. And I was like, cool, let's do it. Again, like, I don't really remember there being like an end goal at the time. It was just something to do with my time while I was looking for work. So then I ended up building up a bit of a portfolio like that in terms of videos and photos. But at the same time, I was emailing out people. Then I sort of passed the line of looking for video work, and I was just looking for any work. For like with a camera related, because I still wanted to be in this industry. I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. And I emailed a bunch of wedding photographers saying, do you need an assistant, maybe someone to carry your bags? I can take some pictures. Here's some, I don't remember if I had a website then, or maybe I just sent them some albums on Facebook that I've done photos of. And I did also do like street photography or like events, free events of like friends saying, we're having this society, whatever thing.
Having a barbecue.
A barbecue, would you like to take pictures? And you're there taking pictures like you're this amazing, candid photographer, when really you're just a friend of a friend. Yeah, you're like in the bushes being like, this is so dramatic. But then you come up with some good pictures. And you can say, you know, this is just what I do.
I think that's it. It's like, sort of accepting that, you know, it might not be paid work for those first couple of years. But this was like, what, 10 years or so ago for us.
This was a good 10 years ago. It just builds up also your confidence as someone behind a camera, because it's a lot easier to photograph your friends having a good time, and then when you get into photographing events where you don't know people, like it's awkward because you're there being like, hi, I don't know you, but I'm right up here taking a picture of your face. But you've done that before, and you kind of know what you want to get out of that picture, so you've got a bit more confidence.
Yeah, you've like almost rehearsed a bit of a script with how you might interact with a person who's in front of you.
Yeah.
And you have a camera, and they're very aware that it's there.
Yeah, and in the beginning, you're very aware. Sorry, there's a mobility scooter. Oh, they're going to stop and chat outside my window. That's nice.
Should we invite them in for a cup of coffee?
What? He sounds like... Is that his? That's so loud.
Maybe it's a lawnmower at the same time.
Maybe. What a great idea.
Yeah, there we go.
I know.
Let's get rid of photography and videography.
Let's drag and den this. Okay.
That has actually led us really nicely on to the next question, which was, how do I engage with my subjects?
Yeah.
So how do you go about... So, I mean, my brain immediately goes to the couple's portraits, but actually you're obviously interacting with subjects the whole day at weddings. So maybe, should we start with the couple stuff? Like how you deal with that that moment where everyone's looking at you to do something.
To do stuff.
Just do something.
So yeah, it really helps to get there with enough time to just make sort of slight relationships with people, so they know who you are. By the time you then get to like the having to tell people what to do, the bridal party at least knows who you are.
Yeah,
like they
establish that relationship.
Yeah,
with them.
you're sort of.
They know you.
They know you. They know that you're chill. They know that you are good. And I think what helps is throughout the day, I always make it a point to say to them, "Don't worry, I'm not going to make you look bad." Like sometimes people will be eating and they see me, with the camera, they're like, "Oh my God, I was just chewing," and I'm always like, "Please don't worry, I'll never make you look bad in the video. Like I'm not gonna film you smoking.
Not out to assassinate you, yeah.
Yeah, I need this to look good as much as you want it to look good."
Yeah.
So yeah, not gonna film people smoking or stuffing their faces with food. So yeah, by the time you get to the portraits, hopefully they know that you're on their side. But if they're still, I think like the hardest couple to shoot are the ones that are a bit reserved, a bit shy. And there are plenty of people like that get married and still have videos and photos done. And I think the best thing you can do is just almost pretend like you're not filming, like as much as you can. Like you're sort of, you talk to them a lot. You just ask about, how was the weather? What did you guys do this morning? Oh, did you expect her to wear this dress? You've got a few questions that you sort of prompt them. I think from the video side and from the photography side, it's important to say, while you're answering these, just carry on looking at each other and we'll be doing our own thing. But the last thing you want to do is put them on the spot and say, right, now just, I don't know, kiss each other and that's it, and don't say anything else. And they've done that and they don't know what to do, and you've just got your camera in their faces because they oh God, sorry, I forgot about the mic. But yeah, because they don't know what it looks like, and so it's your job to just make them forget that you're there. But by talking to them, but forget that you're filming.
Like treating them just like a human being. But I don't know about you, but I find myself being a bit of a chameleon. So if I've got quite a shy couple, well, maybe a chameleon's not the right word in this instance, but like I kind of adjust myself as to how the couple are. So if I've got a shy couple, I tend to go like a little bit more, I would say I overcompensate and actually just kind of make myself be a bit silly to make them feel more comfortable around me, because I always think, well, if they think that I'm a bit of a goofy idiot, then they're probably not, they might come out of their shell a little bit.
So I'm constantly,
it's a real sort of self-awareness, I think, of how you are to the couple and how you need to behave to be able to get the best out of them. And I think that's probably the part to our job that's a really difficult one to explain, but that we do very naturally, is your kind of presence and your awareness of yourself on the day. So yes, you've got it whilst it's very intense and you're working with just the couple, but especially as a photographer, like you can easily come across as like the bossy bitch that's telling everyone to get together for photos and all this kind of stuff. So I try to I want to be nice, but you need to be a bit authoritative sometimes, otherwise you just don't get what the couple need. So yeah, like I tend to be quite selective about when people hear me and see me, and then try to blend in a lot of the day, so when we're outside of the couple's portrait, so you can just get that documentary stuff. And it also, even things like, coming down to like what you're wearing and all that sort of thing, I want to look as much part of the wedding party as I can. It's a little bit of an awkward thing I've got, where I always tend to dress in the same colours that the bridesmaids wear by total accident. So I turn up and I just look like I'm trying too hard. And like I managed to do it twice last week. Managed to wear green and then pink, and match the bridesmaids both weddings. So
I bet the bride loves that, because that's her colour scheme at the end of the day.
Yeah, but I mean, anyway. I'd rather not do it, I think, but it just seems to be a coincidence that I do quite a lot. But yeah, so and then in terms of like kind of dipping into people's conversations, and I think it's obviously very accepted that there's a camera there at a wedding, but kind of going back to the early days as well, like shooting street photography and stuff, like people hated having their photo taken. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to get paid to do this, and someone's not going to mind me taking their photo. In fact, they're actually going to really like that I'm taking their photo. I remember that was quite a surreal shift for me, where I felt like I was always asking to do it, and like
hoping that no one gets annoyed that you're taking people's photos.
Yeah. And I think perhaps there's still an element of that I'm very aware that I am asking for something from the person that I'm photographing. Like, I don't know what it is, but there's something going on there where you're almost taking a bit of that person, I feel.
Yeah, I think you have to be very empathetic to the people that you're pointing your lens to. So I almost feel like at the end of the day, like I know everyone, like I'm everyone's friend, and everyone's like, sometimes they say, oh, you should stay for the party bit, once you finish work. And as soon as you put your camera down, you lift your eyes up and you realize, oh, I'm not actually like part of this friend group. But while you're there capturing it, like you have to put yourself in other people's shoes. Like sometimes you see someone who doesn't like having their photo taken, and they're really sort of, every time you point the camera at them, they get a bit shy, or they sort of turn away from you. And it's then your job to try and do that without making them feel intimidated. Or someone who loves it, and then you have to play along with them, and you make it fun, and then you get the most out of them. Like you have to be really flexible, because you're capturing that person.
They're trusting you that you're going to photograph them in the best light. And it's, having that empathy, self-awareness, but then also understanding of people, which, I mean, I don't know, to me, I think that's what makes good photography and good videography. It's like kind of getting under the skin of the subject or the people that you're photographing, or the wedding party that you're with, because you're photographing or videoing how it is. It's still looking beautiful because you're still a bit selective with like framing and lighting and everything like that. But you're kind of doing it all justice, I think. But that empathy and that awareness, I think, for me, has come from, like, I used to worked in restaurants for 10 years as well, alongside doing my degree and bits and bobs, and again, like working in health and social care, working with people. So just getting yourself used to talking with every different kind of person that you could ever encounter in life, because let's face it, like every couple's different as well. Like, you might, you might kind of have the dream client that you want to work with, and there might be some kind of consistency through your portfolio and everything like that, but I think everyone's personalities and how they interact as a couple is always going to be different. And it's like, I like thinking about conversation as like being creative as well, and it's almost like an improvisation. Like one person says something, another person says something, it builds, right? And that's, I kind of feel like what you're doing with photography as well. So yeah, I feel like I've gone off on a tangent there, but
no, well, it's a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
but it is, because like I think sometimes photographers or videographers fall into this trap of, these are the kind of weddings that I love to shoot, so I'm going to try and fit all my couples into this bracket, when they don't necessarily act that way. Or, you know, like some couples don't want to practice their first dance in a field. You can just tell, or they don't want to be, you know, picked up or do smoke bombs, or so don't offer that. And that's your job to just completely, like, building up to that point when it's just you and the couple, when you take them away to take these photos. You've got all half a day to suss these people out, to see the kind of jokes that you can make with them, the things that you shouldn't probably say. Like, I've worked with photographers before that you can tell that, like, they say jokes to the couple that make some couples laugh, but sometimes saying them to the wrong couple makes the couple feel awkward, and then you're sort of like, no, you're ruining the vibe for this shoot.
She's
like,
talking about me, by the way.
Yeah, no, Amy's awful, really. No, but sometimes, like,
shit jokes.
like they'll say, oh, can you kiss each other? And they'll have a kiss, and they'll say, oh God, get a room. And you're like, but that's just ruined their vibe. Like they already feel awkward in front of the camera. They don't want to be making out in front of your lens. So the least you can do is just to be like, oh, that looks really sweet, or...
That's actually one thing that I learned really early doors is whenever your couple see you looking at the back of your camera, be really positive about it.
Don't be neutral. Even if it's great, you have to, or like, even if it's horrible, just be like, this is amazing.
Even if you've messed up your settings entirely, it's like, oh my God, that looks great.
You guys look amazing.
Because the second your energy dips, they're feeding off you constantly. So
you need to amp it up.
There's not many rules, I guess, but that's definitely one rule.
Yeah, and sometimes it helps to even show them. I don't know if you ever show that. I don't, because mine is video, so it just doesn't work as well. But sometimes photographers do say, have a look.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I've shown once or twice, but it's not something I get into the habit of, because I also don't want to break the flow of what we're doing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, each to their own, right?
Yeah.
But if you hit a banger and you're really confident with it, I'd see no harm in showing anyone.
Yeah. But I think it's enough to just keep reassuring them that they look really nice.
Yeah.
Or, like, sometimes what I like to do is draw the attention away from them and say, oh, the wind is blowing the tree really nicely, or, your veil is flowing really, like, just make it seem like they're not the center of what you're doing. Yeah, obviously they are, but just, oh, look at those birds, or just something, whatever is...
Smell dinner.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys hungry? Have you eaten anything? Or like, sometimes we go out for the golden hour shoot after they've eaten. And that's a really good time to, like, for them to chat about what's happened in that time, which is normally the speeches. So you can say, like, is that what you expected to hear? And then they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you told that story. And it gets them talking. It gets them to just for a brief moment forget about you. And that's your job, I think, is just to make them forget that you're there, to put them on the spot. Or some couples love it. But this is talking about the ones that are a bit weary of the camera. Because that's where your job comes in. If a couple is easy to photograph, then you're just, you've hit the jackpot.
You're lucky, but that's quite rare, I think.
Yeah.
That you've got a couple that sort of know how to work the camera.
Yeah, because it's not natural for people to just be photographed by someone else. We don't do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've been in front of my lens a couple of times.
Maternity shoot.
And family shoot as well. Yeah. Out of interest, how did that feel? Was that really bizarre?
Well, for me, I think it was...
You?
I don't know.
Although
I think
you've been married as well, so you've kind of had that experience.
But and also I have like I know you, so it was fun because it's like being photographed by a friend. It's like saying, "Can you just take a photo?"
Yeah.
You know, so then you don't get awkward.
Yeah.
I was just hoping that my dog wouldn't scratch up your legs like she can.
I'd have been upset if she didn't. So.
No, she scratched up my leggings, didn't she? I was walking around with a hole in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think that's another thing that I will say to clients as well is I understand, because I try to periodically put myself in front of a lens, because I do like body positivity, kind of boudoir type shoots as well. And I will put myself in front of a lens. I'll get another photographer to shoot me just so I kind of understand or keep in touch with that relationship.
That feeling.
To be, being a subject rather than hiding behind the lens, I guess.